October 1918, Argonne Forest, France. More than 500 men from New York's 77th Division pushed into a ravine, lost contact, and vanished behind German lines for 5 days. The history books called them the Lost Battalion. I kept staring at the word lost. Most of them were city men, clerks, dockhands, tailors, kids off Bronx and Manhattan blocks, folded into the 77th Statue of Liberty Division. I had their roster under amber light, names cramped in fading ink. Concrete fact: many had barely seen open country before France. Major Charles Whittlesey commanded the force. Lawyer in civilian life. Harvard. Clean collars. Exact habits. In the photographs, he stood straight as a survey stake. On 2 October, he led roughly 554 men forward. After that, every hour in the record smelled like wet wool and powder. Captain George McMurtry was there too. Hard case.
Old army blood. Runners moved through brush with messages tucked in tunics, and pigeons rode in baskets as the last clean line out. One bird mattered more than a company of men before the week was over. The place did half the killing. The Argonne was a broken green maze of shell holes, wire, ravines, and tree trunks shaved white by artillery. Charlevaux Ravine cut deep near Binarville. Mud sucked at boots. Cordite sat in the air like burned pennies.
Maps made it look simple. Advance east. Keep contact on both flanks. Support follows. The ground laughed at that plan. Units drifted in smoke and undergrowth. A ridge could hide a battalion. A few hundred yards might as well have been another country. The pocket sat in a fold of the ravine under German guns. Steep banks, chopped trees, little cover worth the name. Once the neighboring French unit pulled back and the American flank failed, Whittlesey's men were left sticking out alone, gone. No trace from headquarters worth trusting. I spread the field order across my desk. 77th Division, 2 October 1918. The language was clipped and confident. Push forward. Maintain liaison. Objective beyond the ravine. The paper had that old dust smell, dry as bone. The thing is, paper never had to climb those slopes. Then came the timeline. Morning advance. Initial gains. Noon confusion. Wire communications failed. Runners disappeared. Ammunition thinned. The original investigators, if that word fits army clerks, wrote it in a steady hand. Men bled between those lines and vanished inside the grammar. I had the casualty sheets next. By the end, around 197 were killed, missing, or captured, and roughly 194 were wounded. Fewer than 200 walked out unhurt. The figures were neat columns, neat lies by omission. Numbers never carried the smell of open bandages. The photographs were worse. One showed the ravine floor after relief, bodies under blankets, split branches overhead. Another caught prisoners being marched away through the timber. Faces belonged to history. Posture told the truth. Bent shoulders, men hollowed out before they reached the rear. The official version was clean enough to fit a parade speech. The battalion advanced aggressively, became isolated by enemy resistance and confusion on adjacent lines, then held out with heroic discipline until relieved on 7 October. That record won medals and newspaper ink. It also closed doors. Command reports said support had been intended. Artillery coordination was difficult. Terrain caused delays. Liaison failed under combat pressure. Those are the proper terms. Polished brass words. The record says friction of war. The record lies. Friction did not write impossible orders onto those maps by accident. Then there was the shelling from their own side. American artillery dropped rounds into the trapped pocket after coordinates went wrong. Men already pinned by Germans were hit by friendly fire. That part survived because it had witnesses. Carrier pigeon Cher Ami flew out wounded with the correction tied to his leg. Relief came only after repeated attacks chewed a path back to them. On 8th October, the newspapers had their headline, and the army had its legend. Whittlesey became the face of endurance. The men became a symbol. Symbols are useful. They keep clerks from asking where the support went. That's where the cracks started. The neighboring units on both flanks did not keep pace. Some were stopped cold. Some fell back. Some reports contradicted each other by the hour. I read one statement against another and heard only rain tapping the office window. Everybody had a reason. One crack was the map itself. Terrain markings were weak, the forest denser than expected, and command had a poor grip on exact positions. Officers planned movement through ground they had never truly seen. Short fragment. Men paid for that with canteens, blood, and silence. Another crack sat inside the orders to maintain contact. That demanded runners crossing enfiladed gullies under machine gun fire. Some never returned. Some came back with scraps of information already stale. Headquarters kept issuing expectations the ravine had already buried. Some cases stay cold for a reason. And Whittlesey's own conduct complicated the file. He refused German surrender demands and held his position with stubborn precision. That became legend. It also froze the question of whether retreat had ever been possible earlier, before the ring closed tight and escape became a body count.
Alternate Theory 1 was simple.
The battalion was not lost so much as abandoned by a chain of command that mistook momentum for control. Hard push, bad maps, failed liaison, no timely correction. Heroism came later because the first language available for the mistake was too expensive. Theory 2 sat with the artillery. Friendly fire was blamed on battlefield confusion. But the delays in correcting coordinates suggest deeper breakdowns in communication and command discipline. Cher Ami got the glory because a wounded bird made cleaner copy than a table full of officers missing the ground truth. Theory 3 never left me. Higher command may have tolerated the isolation longer than admitted because the pocket pinned German attention and served the broader offensive timetable. Cold arithmetic. Used the trapped men as an anchor while other sectors moved. I never found proof. I found enough smoke. After the relief, the survivors scattered into hospitals, new units, and public memory. Some gave statements, some kept quiet. Whittlesey carried the thing home like a stone in his coat. In 1921, he stepped off a steamship and disappeared into the Atlantic. Another file, same ache. The paper trail kept thinning. Contradictory accounts of positions remained in after-action reports. Some unit diaries were sharper than division summaries. Some officers were decorated. Few careers suffered. Every loose end is a story someone tried to bury. Army bureaucracy just used better folders. What I knew after 20 years on cold cases was simple enough. Disappearances did not always mean bodies missing from a street. Sometimes a whole truth vanished instead. The Lost Battalion stayed on the books as triumph. I kept hearing the gaps. The file never closes. I had the ravine map under my lamp, and the room smelled of cold coffee and old cardboard. The official story still stood. So did the dead. Where would you look next if this were your case? Tell me, the desk stays cold. The questions don't.